This is where we finished last class, right? You had this activity in which I asked you to tell me what you think that is in between nature and culture. Because remember that we said that this guy, Levi-Strauss, was telling us that nature is everything that is universal to all humankind and that culture is particular to each society. So, according to him, there is only one thing that we're sharing, and I want to clarify something. All the definitions that we saw on culture, well, they are different. This one has something really particular to it, and that is its point of view really focused in biology. So, according to your homeworks, one of them told me that the thing that you believe that is in between is survival, and that is really, really interesting because according to Malinowski's point of view, that would be absolutely correct. Actually, well, not quite, because the whole point of culture would be survival. But do not get confused because that is just according to the point of view of this particular guy, the particular point of view of this guy. He wasn't the best actually. So remember, he was one of the best ones. He was really good, and he was the first one actually. He actually does look like an artist, a modern artist, right? I don't know whom, but he remembers me of someone. But we're going to be working with this definition, remember, the one of Levi-Strauss, because it is really simple. Culture is everything that is not natural, everything that is particular to each society. So, according to Levi-Strauss, the only thing that is in between nature and culture is the prohibition of incest or the incest taboo. So, what is the incest taboo? The incest taboo says that all societies establish rules for marriage. However, these rules are different in every society. So, if nature is everything that is universal to all humankind, it is universal to all humankind that we include within our rules of marriage that we do not marry our own family. That is universal. There is not a single society in history and within all humanity, within all the world, that actually says that it is okay to marry your own family. That is universal. But what is particular is that it is very different what each society considers to be your family. So for some societies, marrying your cousins is absolutely okay because they are not considered to be part of your family. For example, there are some societies in which they only consider that the family from the side of your father is your family. So everyone from the side of your mother is actually an option to be married with, right? Because they are not part of your family. So that is why, according to Levi-Strauss, the incest taboo or the prohibition of incest is in between nature and culture, because it is natural in the sense that it is universal to humankind. Every single society prohibits that you get married to your own family. And it is cultural because every single society defines family in a different way. So we have actually talked about two societies in which this happened. For example, the Egyptians. Do you remember the Egyptians? That the pharaoh, and only the pharaoh, could marry his sister. But there were rules in there, right? He wasn't quite marrying his own family, because remember that it could only be a half sister and she had to be an older sister. So if she was, first of all, if he was the pharaoh and she was his half sister and she was older than him, then that wouldn't be considered incest, so it would be allowed. And the same case applies to the Incas in Peru. So the rules are more or less the same. We're going to study them when we reach this cultural region in South America. Actually, it is going to be the second region that we're going to be studying. But in these two societies, the ruler was allowed to marry, kind of marry his own kind, his own family, but not quite, because this incest taboo, this prohibition about marrying your own family, also applies to them. So they had really, really clear rules on who could they marry, and they couldn't marry anyone else. So that is why, according to Levi-Strauss, that is the only thing that is in between nature and culture. So from here, everything goes goes to develop within what culture is, whatever culture may be said to be. So starting here, if the only thing that is in between nature and culture is the prohibition of incest, then we're starting to see some elements that are going to be a part of culture, very important part of culture. And actually, if we were saying that anthropology is the branch of science devoted to the study of culture, these elements that are included over here in this list are going to be the main focuses of anthropology. Why? Because they are the best places in which we could find or in which we could search for culture. So kinship is the first one, because think about it. If we're saying that the first thing that is in between culture and nature is the prohibition of incest, then that is talking about family, of how do we define family. As I was telling you, not every society considers everyone to be part of their family. We do consider that both the family of our father and the family of our mother are our family, but in other societies only the side of your mother is your family, and in other societies only the side of your father is your family, and in other societies they are both your family but in different senses. Like, it is not the same to be family from the side of your mother than family from the side of your father, because they will have different rights and obligations towards you. So kinship is one of the first things that is going to be one of the main cultural phenomena. Also language. Language for a long time was considered to be the best example about culture, because every single society has a different culture, right? And the only way that we have to express our culture and to define what we think about the world is language. So according to some ideas like half a century old, they used to think that language was the best example on culture, that culture was expressed mainly through language. And that may be truth. Perhaps now we think that we have other elements, but we still consider that language is one of the most important one of them to talk about culture. Another one is religion, because remember that we have talked about religion in the sense that in a broader sense, not only in the Christian sense, but really in a broader sense. I do really want you, like right now, repeat after me. Cum excusationes itaque veteres audiendi sunt. Like, really repeat that phrase 3 times. Cum excusationes itaque veteres audiendi sunt. Cum excusationes itaque veteres audiendi sunt. Cum excusationes itaque veteres audiendi sunt. And that is a Latin phrase that literally means we need to have a lot of respect for the past ones, for our ancestors. We really need to be respectful when we hear about our ancestors. And that phrase comes from an anthropologist, James George Fraser, that writes this book called The Golden Bough. And he's absolutely researching about religion, but the important thing about that is that we may see a lot of difference between what each people thinks. People in here referring of peoples of ethnicity, right? There are a lot of difference within each society and within each ethnical group, and we need to be respectful towards every single one of them, because not because they think differently than us, that means that they are wrong or that they are silly or something worse, right? That they are ignorant. They are not. They are actually really knowledgeable in their own culture, as we are knowledgeable in our own culture. So we need to start by defining that. So remember that we saw a need to take a broader look in religion, that what our own religion tells us about religion, because if we don't, then the only religion is our religion and the rest of them are absolutely wrong. And remember, cum excusationes itaque veteres audiendi sunt. We need to listen to our ancestors with great respect, because they think differently, because they have a different culture, and that doesn't mean that they are ignorant. They weren't ignorant at all. So all these ideas between having different religions, remember that we said that this broader definition of religion was that religion is a system in which we can classify between what is sacred and what is profane, what is part of the world simply. So there are a lot of systems that are able to classify between sacred and profane, and every single one of these systems are going to be religion. And remember, in the last place, actually, all the 20th century defined its studies about culture, thinking that culture is a system of classification, that we are able to classify reality, and actually we are able to understand reality through the way that we classify it, and that is the main purpose of culture. Sorry, my throat is kind of dry. That culture is a system of classify, a way of classifying reality. That language is a way of classifying reality. One of the branches of anthropology is linguistics, and the first formal scientific linguist, sorry, is I have his book like less than a meter from me. Saussure. His name is, well, his last name is Saussure, and Saussure was really clear in his book, his treatise about linguistic studies, saying that language is a way of classifying reality. It's intended to classify reality. So religion is also intended to classify reality, but the way in which religion classifies reality is through defining what is sacred and what is profane. And every single society has a way of defining what is sacred and what is not sacred, what is profane. And every single one, as every single society defines sacred differently and profane differently, then that is one of the things that is particular to its society, right? So it is culture. It is a great example of culture. Also political systems. Political systems are also one of the main focuses of anthropology, because remember, you should be really knowledgeable about this right now, because remember that we saw the last trimester all these ways of organization. For example, the tribe, the tribal confederacy, the horde, the clan, the fratry, the state, and all those are political systems in which humans are going to try to solve conflict, because the main focus of politics is solving conflict, public conflict. So the way in which a tribe solves public conflict is really different than the way in which a state solves public conflict. So that is particular to each society, and thus is culture, right? And economy, as I was telling you, um, even if we saw economic regions last trimester as one of our focus of study in geography, actually economy is one of the best examples of culture. We should see economy as a part of cultural regions, because at least you should remember that we saw these examples on traditional economy, in which they wouldn't even consider money as something important, but status. And there are systems also in which the individual is not important, but groups are important, such as families or clans. So as economy is something that actually changes within society, what we consider to be valuable changes within society, then economy is also something really, really cultural. Think about this. Have you heard that these ancient people living in America used to think that feathers and some seeds, some cocoa seeds, were their money? Well, actually, that isn't quite truth, but however, we need to take into consideration that what each society considers to be valuable is different, and economics depends on that senses of what is valuable and what is not valuable. So being that the case, then economics is also something really, really cultural, one of the best examples of culture too. So let's start with applying all these ideas to particular cases. And the way in which I want to start, as I was telling you, I want to start with Mexico. And with Mexico, and I really want you to pay attention to this, because you're going to study these topics the next year in your history class, and you rather really understand it now, because the way that you're going to see it next year is not going to be really critical. You're going to see the cultures and all, but you're really your only true chance to really be analytic on this and to really have a time to think it through is right now, because next year you're just going to have to know some things in order to pass your classes or whatever. It is going to be a part of your courses, but it is not going to be a part of your course to really go deep in the reflection of this, to really go deep into being critical into these concepts. So I really invite you to do that right now, and that is what we are going to be doing. So this